Hi, this week's Parsha is Parsha Chukkat, and you have this dramatic episode of Moshe hitting the rock with a staff at the area that becomes known as the waters of Meribah. And the situation is the Israelites start complaining when there's no water after Miriam dies, and they make the why don't we go back to Egypt deal, and that's not really cool. That's not the best reaction from the people who witnessed all these like miracles, like all like who've been like cared for, getting mun, get like, but they're nervous, they're worried. The rubber hits the road when you don't have something to drink, right? Like no matter how many great things have happened, and at this point Moshe loses it a little bit, and he instead of doing what Hashem asked him to speak to the rock and get water, Moshe he calls them rebels in pasuk yud verse 10 in Perek Kaf, which is 20, chapter 20 in Bamidbar Numbers. It's Vayika Chalu Moshe va'Aaron et kechal et Pnei Hasalat Vayomer Lachem Shmu na Hamorim. Listen, you rebels. So Moshe and Aaron assembled the congregation in front of the rock, and he said to them, "Listen, you rebels. Amin hasela hazeh notzi lechem mayim. Shall we get water from you out of this rock?" Ooh, you rebels! Ouch. So, what's interesting, I think, in this situation is many things. But one of the lessons I think the Torah could point out here is Hashem's great chesed and great emet, his great kindness, his great truth. So Hashem has this way of being compassionate, and yet also there's justice here too. Now, in both situations here, each group has acted incorrectly. Moshe, instead of calling the people rebels, I think should have called, as I learned from Rabbi Shaul, and that he learned from Pastor John, which I'll cite in here, about the idea of calling people up, right? There's a time to call people out, like you did this wrong, you did this, but instead of like just calling them out, calling them up with what they can be, it's like, I know you are such people of faith. You are the ones who left Egypt, and you had no idea, and you went into the desert. That's who you are. I'm gonna call you up to be that, instead of calling you out and be like you're a rebel, like making their identity, identifying them with what they did wrong. And so what happened in that moment is Moshe went from the place of judging their action but to judging them. And that is Hashem's realm only. To evaluate a person completely, that's Hashem's realm. And a person does not have the ability to do that. A person can call out what's wrong action, but but can't evaluate them that way. And Moshe does get punished for this. And at the same time, Hashem has compassion. And look, Moshe, unbelievable. I mean, look, Moshe has been through and had to put up with, like, no blame here. And Hashem is compassionate. He doesn't say, you're not a leader. A leader doesn't call their people that are leading rebels. That's not a leader. He lets him be a leader. He keeps him. Moshe doesn't suffer for his actions, but he doesn't. He's still Moshe. And the people, in a way, I think Hashem's letting them get punished through Moshe by calling them rebels. Like, they're getting pointed out, like, you're doing something wrong. You're getting publicly called out. At the same time, he has compassion for them as well, and gives them water to drink. And I think it's a wonderful example of how being able to have compassion and yet address injustice. And I think not making any, like, I think that this side of message of being able to have compassion with people is so crucial at this time, where I think there's a lot of, at least I feel in my heart, that there's often this urge to take a side, like whether it's the police or to support Black lives, as if that's a dichotomy. But then sometimes it feels like you better take a side. You better take a side. You can't be, or you better vilify the police, or you better vilify the Black Lives Matter movement, or you better, like, it's like, let's see if we can find what's wrong and what's right, and maintain our compassion for all involved, at the same time pursuing justice. the same time, for whatever issue and whatever side, that can I find what's right and maintain compassion. And I think that's not an easy space to be, but that's the space Hashem, I think, is showing in this moment and calling us to do. And may in my heart, may we always rise to what Hashem calls us. Have a good one.